Hello, this is Mark E. Wilson from La Cañada High School. I'm known as Dr. E. This is the sixth session of the Global Change Unit, Unit 9, Ocean Warming. In this unit, we're going to be explaining the causes and effects of ocean warming, and going to be doing it by describing environmental problems associated with ocean warming. As the atmosphere warms, heat, of course, is transferred to the ocean. As the ocean absorbs the heat, it's radiated back to Earth by greenhouse gases. Okay, so it absorbs here, goes back into the atmosphere, and it's a continuous cycle. Ocean absorbs much of the Earth's heat due to its high specific heat. Over 90% of the Earth's warming from the past 50 years occurred in the oceans. There are thermohaline circulation, like the Gulf Current, distributes the heat from the north to the equator, north and south to the equator, from the poles to the equator. And this distributes the heat absorbed at the surface, and it also not just brings it to the poles, but it brings it to the bottom. That's what that's thermohaline. That means that the heat and the salt makes it goes to the bottom of the ocean. Heat absorbed by the ocean can transfer back to the atmosphere for decades. What are the effects on the marine species? Warmer water holds less oxygen, causing respiratory stress or suffocation. Some of the migratory routes and mating seasons can be altered, especially for whales. Reproductive timing, especially tied to temperature change, can be disrupted. For example, polar bears are having problems because they have less habitat. Red knot, loss of wetland habitat. The pied flycatcher, mismatch between the arrival and the breeding. Some of the turtles are switching sexes because of the temperature. Plus, because of the sea level rise, there's been a loss of habitat. The gray whale has a longer journey because of the sea temperature. Albatross reduced food supply, and therefore it has to go farther, and so forth. With habitat loss, for example, coral bleaching. With a heating ocean, it kills the algae. The sunny waters are ideal for algae, and coral become deeper with ice melt. But with the increased temperatures, deeper oceans, because of the expansion, the algae are dying. We'll find out tomorrow what causes the coral to be destroyed. There's also toxic algae blooms. Toxic blue-green algae prefer warm waters, and warm temperatures prevents the mixing of water, enabling huge algae blooms, which remove oxygen from the water when the algae dies. And so this is the algae bloom. Blue-green algae release toxins into the water that can kill marine species. They can also block sunlight and lead to hypoxic. Also, climate change drastically affects coral reef systems. For example, with the warming ocean, there's a thermal stress which destroys the algae. With the sea level rise, there's more sedimentation down on the coral reefs, but also there's less light hitting down into the algae. There's different storm patterns. There's stronger, more frequent storms which can break off the algae. There's change in precipitation, increased runoff, which means more freshwater and sediment will cover the algae, cover the coral reefs. With the altered ocean currents, there's a change in the connectivity and the temperature regimes. And also what we'll learn more about tomorrow is ocean acidification, causing problems with the coral, not just the algae, but the coral itself. Coral bleaching. In a coral reef is a mutualistic relationship between coral and the photosynthetic algae called zooxanthellae. Algae supply sugar and coral supply the home, the CO2 and the nutrient-containing organic material. Algae have a narrow temperature tolerance, and they leave the reef when the temperature rises. So a healthy coral have coral and algae living together very nicely. However, when it's stressed, the algae leave. And therefore, if the algae is gone, it's just left with a bleached white coral behind it. Pollutants from runoff, such as sediment, pesticides, and sunscreen, can also force algae to leave the reef. Coral lose color and become stressed and vulnerable to disease without the algae there supplying food. So practice FRQ 9.6. Can you describe one climate change related threat to coral reef systems? And 2, can you describe one climate change related threat to a marine species other than coral? Thank you, and I hope that was helpful.